All right, Graveyard Book, Chapter 3, Part 3. Ghouls. We're getting into... This chapter started off talking about ghouls, and I think we're about to learn a little bit more. Down the street and up the hill came the Duke of Westminster, the Honourable Archibald Fitzhugh, and the Bishop of Bath and Wells, slipping and bounding from shadow to shadow, lean and leathery, all sinews and cartilage, wearing raggedy clothes all a tatter, and they bounded and loped and skulked, leapfrogging over dustbins, keeping to the dark side of hedges. They were small, like full-sized people who had shrunk in the sun. They spoke to each other in undertones, saying things like, "If your Grace has any more bloomin' idea of where we is than us do, I'd be grateful if he'd say so. Otherwise he should keep his big, awful hole shut." And, "All I'm saying, your worship, is that I knows there's a graveyard near to here. I can smell it." And, "If you could smell it, then I should be able to smell it, 'cause I've got a better nose than you have, your Grace." All this as they dodged and wove their way through suburban gardens. They avoided one garden. "Psst," hissed the Honourable Archibald Fitzhugh. "Dogs!" and ran along the top of the garden wall, scampering over it like rats the size of children. Down into the high street and up the road to the top of the hill, and then they were at the graveyard wall, and they went up it like squirrels up a tree, and they sniffed the air. "Where, dog?" said the Duke of Westminster. "Where? I don't know, someplace around here. Doesn't smell like a proper dog anyway," said the Bishop of Bath and Wells. "Somebody couldn't smell this graveyard neither," said the Honourable Archibald Fitzhugh. "Remember, it's just a dog." Now, you can't notice this, but it says were-dog, as in like werewolf. But just a little confusion with the homophones. The three of them leapt down from the wall to the ground, and they ran, using their arms as much as their legs, to propel themselves through the graveyard to the ghoul gate by the lightning tree. And beside the gate, in the moonlight, they paused. "What's this when it's at home, then?" said the Bishop of Bath and Wells. "La me," said the Duke of Westminster. Bod woke then. The three faces staring into his could have been those of mummified humans, fleshless and dried, but their features were mobile and interested. Mouths that grinned to reveal sharp, stained teeth, bright, beady eyes, clawed fingers that moved and tapped. "Who are you?" Bod asked. "We," said one of the creatures, they were, Bod realized, only a little bigger than he was, "is most important folk, we is. This here is the Duke of Westminster." The biggest of the creatures gave a bow, saying, "Charmed, I'm sure. And this is the Bishop of Bath and Wells." The creature, which grinned sharp teeth and let a pointed tongue of improbable length waggle between them, did not look like Bod's idea of a bishop. Its skin was piebald, and it had a large dark spot across one eye, making it look almost piratical. "And I have the honour to be the Honourable Archibald Fitzhugh, at your service." The three creatures bowed as one. The Bishop of Bath and Wells said, "Now, me lad, what's your story, eh? And don't tell any porkies. Remember as how you're talking to a bishop." "You tell him, your worship," said the other two. So Bod told them. He told them how no one liked him or wanted to play with him, how no one appreciated him or cared, and how even his guardian had abandoned him. "Blow me down," said the Duke of Westminster, scratching his nose, a little dried-up thing that was mostly nostrils. "What you need is to go somewhere the people would appreciate you." "There isn't anywhere," said Bod, "and I'm not allowed out of the graveyard." "You needs an 'ole world of friends and playfellows," said the Bishop of Bath and Wells, wiggling his long tongue. "A city of delights, of fun and magic, where you would be appreciated, not ignored." Bod said, "The lady who's looking after me, she makes horrible food, hard-boiled egg soup and things." "Food?" said the Honourable Archibald Fitzhugh. "Where we're going, the food is the best in the whole world. Makes me tum rumble and me mouth water just to think of it." "Can I come with you?" asked Bod. "Come with us?" said the Duke of Westminster. He sounded shocked. "Oh, don't be like that, your grace," said the Bishop of Bath and Wells. "Have a blinkin' heart. Look at the little mite. He ain't had a decent meal and he don't know how long." "I vote to take him," said the Honourable Archibald Fitzhugh. "There's good grub back at our place." He patted his stomach to show how good the food was. "So, you game for adventure?" asked the Duke of Westminster, won over by the novel idea. "Or do you want to waste the rest of your life here?" And with bony fingers indicated the graveyard and the night. Bod thought of Miss Lupescu and her awful food and her lists and her pinched mouth. "I'm game," he said. His 3 new friends might have been his size, but they were far stronger than any child, and Bod found himself picked up by the Bishop of Bath and Wells and held high over the creature's head, while the Duke of Westminster grabbed a handful of mangy-looking grass, shouted what sounded like "skach, thech, kvach," and pulled. The stone slab that covered the grave swung open like a trap-door, revealing a darkness beneath. "Quick now," said the Duke, and the Bishop of Bath and Wells tossed Bod into the dark opening, then leapt in after him, followed by the Honourable Archibald Fitzhugh, and then, with one agile bound, by the Duke of Westminster, who, as soon as he was inside, called out, "Weg Cardos," to close the ghoul gate, and the stone crashed down above them. Bod fell, tumbling through the darkness like a lump of marble, too startled to be scared, wondering how deep the hole beneath the grave could possibly be, when 2 strong arms caught him beneath the armpits, and he found himself swinging forward through the pitched blackness. Bod had not experienced total darkness for many years in the graveyard. He saw as the Dead Sea, and no tomb or grave or crypt was truly dark to him. Now he was in utter darkness, feeling himself being pitched forward in a sequence of jerks and rushes, the wind rushing past him. It was frightening, but it was also exhilarating. And then there was light, and everything changed. The sky was red, but not the warm red of a sunset. This was an angry, glowering red, the color of an infected wound. The sun was small. It seemed like it was old and distant. The air was cold, and they were descending a wall. Tombstones and statues jutted out of the side of the wall, as if a huge graveyard had been upended, and, like 3 wizened chimpanzees in tattered black suits that did up in the back, the Duke of Westminster, the Bishop of Bath and Wells, and the Honourable Archibald Fitzhugh were swinging from statue to stone, dangling Bod between them as they went, tossing him from one to another, never missing him, always catching him with ease, without even looking. Bod tried to look up to see the grave through which they had entered this strange world, but he could see nothing but headstones. He wondered if each of the graves they were swinging past was a door for the kind of people who were carrying him. "Where are we going?" he asked, but his voice was whipped away by the wind. They went faster and faster. Up ahead of them, Bod saw a statue swing up, and another 2 creatures came catapulting out into this crimson-skied world. Just like the ones that carried Bod, one wore a raggedy silken gown that looked like it had once been white, and the other wore a stained gray suit too large for it, the sleeves of which were shredded into shadowy tatters. They spotted Bod and his 3 new friends and made for them, dropping 20 feet with ease. The Duke of Westminster gave a guttural squawk and pretended to be scared, and Bod and the 3 of them swung down the wall of graves, with the 2 new creatures in pursuit. None of them seemed to get tired or out of breath, under the red sky, with the burnt-out sun gazing down at them like a dead eye, but eventually they fetched up on the side of a huge statue of a creature whose whole face seemed to have become a fungoid growth. Bod found himself being introduced to the 33rd President of the United States and the Emperor of China. "This is Master Bod," said the Bishop of Bath and Wells. "He's going to become one of us." "He's in search of a good meal," said the Honourable Archibald Fitzhugh. "Well, you're guaranteed fine dining when you becomes one of us, young lad," said the Emperor of China. "Yup," said the 33rd President of the United States. Bod said, "I become one of you? You mean I'll turn into you?" "Smart as a whip, sharp as a tack. You'd have to get up pretty late in the night to put anything past this lad," said the Bishop of Bath and Wells. "Indeed, one of us as strong, as fast, as unconquerable." teeth so strong they can crush any bones, and tongue sharp and long enough to lick the marrow from the deepest marrow bone, or flay the flesh from a fat man's face, said the Emperor of China. Able to slip from shadow to shadow, never seen, never suspected, free as air, fast as thought, cold as frost, hard as nails, dangerous as us, said the Duke of Westminster. Bod looked at the creatures. But what if I don't want to be one of you? He said. Don't want to? Of course you wants to. What could be finer? I don't think there's a soul in the universe doesn't want to be just like us. We've got the best city. Ghoulheim, said the 33rd President of the United States. The best life, the best food. Can you imagine, interrupted the Bishop of Bath and Wells, how fine a drink the black ichor that collects in a leaden coffin can be? Or how it feels to be more important than kings and queens, than presidents or prime ministers or heroes, to be sure of it, in the same way that people are more important than Brussels sprouts? Bod said, What are you people? Ghouls, said the Bishop of Bath and Wells. Bless me, somebody wasn't paying attention, was he? We're ghouls. Look! Below them, a whole troop of the little creatures were bouncing and running and leaping, heading for the path below them, and before he could say another word, he was snatched up by a pair of bony hands and was flying through the air in a series of jumps and lurches as the creatures headed down to meet the others of their kind. The wall of graves was ending, and now there was a road, and nothing but a road, a much-trodden path across a barren plain, a desert of rocks and bones that wound towards a city high on a huge red rock hill many miles away. Bod looked up at the city and was horrified. An emotion engulfed him that mingled repulsion and fear, disgust and loathing, all tinged with shock. Ghouls do not build. They are parasites and scavengers, eaters of carrion. The city they call Ghoulheim is something they found long ago but did not make. No one knows, if any human ever knew, what kind of creatures it was that made those buildings, who honeycombed the rock with tunnels and towers, but it is certain no one but the ghoul folk could have wanted to stay there or even to approach that place. Even from the path below Ghoulheim, even from miles away, Bod could see that all of the angles were wrong, that the walls sloped crazily, that it was every nightmare he had ever endured made into a place, like a huge mouth of jutting teeth. It was a city that had been built just to be abandoned, in which all the fears